she said. "This entire marriage was a business arrangement. I never actually loved you, only your family's company." She told me this during our 10th anniversary party, surrounded by her family, my business partners. I smiled and activated the room speakers, playing recordings of her plotting with competitors to bankrupt us. I, 45 male, had been with my wife, Victoria, 42, for 12 years, married for 10. Ours was not a whirlwind romance, it was a strategic alliance, a merger of two of Dallas's most prominent families. I was the CEO of Vance Logistics, a company my father had built from the ground up. Victoria was the daughter of the founder of Sterling Industries, our largest and most critical manufacturing partner. Our marriage had solidified the business relationship, placing her and her father on my company's board. It was a union of power and wealth. Thank you for watching. Stay with me until the end. The story holds a twist you won't expect. Subscribe to the channel and support its growth. Our lifestyle was a reflection of our corporate success. We lived in a sprawling estate in Highland Park. Our income was a fluctuating figure in the millions, tied directly to the profits of our intertwined companies. We dined with senators and oil barons. Our friends were our business associates. Our life was a series of board meetings, charity galas, and calculated power plays. I had convinced myself that a deep, abiding respect and a shared ambition had grown between us, something that resembled love. The big opportunity, the one that would test the foundations of our alliance, was my vision for the future of Vance Logistics. I saw that the domestic market was stagnating. The future was global. I developed a bold, aggressive plan for a $100 million expansion into the Asian market, centered around building a new state-of-the-art distribution hub in Singapore. It was a risky, long-term play, but I knew it was the only way to secure our company's dominance for the next generation. The conflict was immediate and fierce. Victoria and her family were horrified. They were comfortable. They enjoyed the massive, steady dividends the company paid out each quarter. My plan threatened that comfortable reality. $100 million. Her father, Robert Sterling, asked during a tense board meeting, "That's an insane risk, Donovan. It will kill our profits for years." Victoria was even more dismissive, both in the boardroom and at home. "This is your ego talking," she said to me one night, her voice cold. "A vanity project. You're gambling with our family's money. It's an investment in the future," I argued. "It's a reckless fantasy," she countered. "And we will not stand for it." They mocked my vision. They called me a reckless cowboy, a fool who was going to destroy his father's legacy. They made it clear that their loyalty was not to the company's future, but to its present-day cash flow. The battle for Vance Logistics had begun, and the enemy was not a competitor. It was my own wife and her family. Update 1. Despite their opposition, I was the CEO, and the expansion plan had the support of the non-family members of the board. I decided to move forward. The moment I did, a quiet, insidious sabotage began. It was subtle at first, designed to look like simple incompetence. Crucial shipments of parts from Sterling Industries would be accidentally delayed, causing cascading failures down our supply chain. Confidential details from my expansion proposal were leaked to industry journals, making us look unstable and chaotic. Victoria would feign support in public, then work against me in private, sowing seeds of doubt among our investors and executives. "These things happen, Donovan," she would say with a dismissive wave of her hand when a critical shipment went missing. "Logistics is a complicated business." The excuses were too convenient, the accidents too precise. I knew this was a coordinated attack. My wife and her family were actively trying to make my expansion plan fail so they could say, "I told you so," and oust me from my own company. My preparation for war began not with planning a move, but with hiring a corporate security firm. They were the best in the business, a team of former intelligence agents who specialized in corporate espionage. I told them I suspected a hostile insider was working to undermine the company. They swept my office, my car, and my home for listening devices. They found 3. One was in my office, disguised as a power adapter. One was in my car. And one was in a lamp in my home study, the very room where I took my most sensitive calls. The discovery was a cold, hard confirmation. This was not just a disagreement, it was a conspiracy. The security team began a deep investigation, monitoring communications and tailing key individuals. They focused on my wife and her father. The preparation was a tense, agonizing waiting game. I had to go about my life, attend dinners with my wife, sit in board meetings with her family, all while knowing they were actively plotting my downfall. I had to pretend to be a fool, to be the struggling CEO, blind to the betrayals happening all around me. The security team's report landed on my desk a month later. It was worse than I could have ever imagined. My wife was not just trying to sabotage the expansion. She was in active collusion with our biggest competitor, a ruthless corporation called Apex Global. The report was filled with transcripts of her phone calls and copies of her emails. She was feeding them everything: our shipping routes, our client lists, our pricing structures, our expansion strategy. Her goal was to cripple Vance Logistics from the inside, to drive our stock price into the ground. Once the company was vulnerable enough, Apex Global would launch a hostile takeover, buying us out for pennies on the dollar. Her family, the Sterlings, had been promised a lucrative buyout and executive positions at Apex. Her betrayal wasn't just personal, it was an act of corporate treason. The final piece of the puzzle was her motivation, revealed in a phone call with the CEO of Apex. "Donovan is a sentimental fool, tied to his father's legacy," she had said in the recording. "I've been waiting 10 years to gut this company and take what's mine. I had my proof, the trap was set. All I needed was the perfect time to spring it. And I knew just the occasion. Our 10th wedding anniversary was in 2 weeks. Victoria, ever the socialite, was planning a massive, extravagant party at our estate. It was meant to be a celebration of our decade as a Dallas power couple. I decided it would be the stage for her final, public ruin. Update 2. The 2 weeks leading up to our anniversary party were the most surreal of my life. I played the part of the loving husband, helping Victoria with the final preparations. I approved the caterers, the orchestra, the valet service. She was in her element, planning a grand spectacle, all while believing I was just days away from a complete corporate and personal collapse. The dramatic irony was a heavy, bitter pill. The night of the party was a perfect Dallas evening. 200 of the city's most powerful and influential people were gathered in our ballroom and on our sprawling terraces. Victoria was radiant, a queen in her court, accepting compliments on her home, her dress, her success. Her father and the rest of her family were there, smug and triumphant, whispering in corners with other board members. They all believed they were attending a farewell party for me. Halfway through the evening, Victoria took the stage, tapping a glass for a toast. She spoke eloquently about our 10 years together, about the strength of our partnership. It was a masterful performance. Then, she asked me to join her on the stage. I walked up, my face a carefully composed mask of loving appreciation. She turned to me, away from the microphone, her voice a low, vicious whisper that only I could hear. It was her moment of triumph, her final twist of the knife before she and her family would make their move in the coming week. "It's a shame this is our last party," she said, her smile never faltering, "but you've become a liability. It's time to cut our losses." And then, she delivered the fatal blow. "This entire marriage was a business arrangement," she said, her eyes glittering with cold ambition. "I never actually loved you, only your family's company." I looked out at the crowd, at her family, our supposed partners, all smiling up at us. I leaned into the microphone. "Thank you, Victoria," I said, my voice ringing out through the ballroom. "Your honesty is refreshing. In fact, it inspires me to be honest as well." I took a small remote from my pocket. "I have a toast of my own," I announced. "A celebration of my wife's dedication to business." I pressed the button. The orchestra music cut out, and a new sound filled the room, broadcast over the high-end speakers we had installed for the party. It was Victoria's voice, crisp and clear from the recordings my security team had captured. "Donovan is a sentimental fool," her voice echoed. "I've been waiting 10 years to gut this company and take what's mine." A shocked silence fell over the crowd. I let the recording play. They heard her giving our proprietary data to the CEO of Apex Global. They heard her plotting to bankrupt the company. They heard her negotiating the terms of her family's betrayal. The fallout was instantaneous. It was a social and corporate detonation. Victoria stood frozen on the stage, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Her father's face was ashen. People started talking at once, a roar of shock and disgust. The recording ended. "As of this moment," I announced into the microphone, "I am filing for divorce. I have also filed a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit against Sterling Industries and Apex Global for corporate espionage. And I am calling for an emergency board meeting tomorrow morning to have every member of the Sterling family removed from the board of Vance Logistics." I dropped the microphone. It clattered on the stage, the sound echoing through the stunned silence. I walked off the stage, through the crowd that parted from me as if I were a ghost, and out of my home for the last time. Final update. The days and weeks that followed the anniversary party were a brutal, public war. The story was everywhere. The Dallas Morning News, the Wall Street Journal. It was a scandal of epic proportions. The lawsuit I filed was one of the largest corporate espionage cases in Texas history. The emergency board meeting was a formality. The Sterling family was removed in a unanimous vote. The hostile takeover attempt from Apex Global collapsed. Their stock plummeted in the wake of the scandal, and their CEO was fired. My own company, though battered, survived. Our loyal board members rallied around me. Our employees, seeing the extent of the betrayal I had faced, worked with a renewed sense of purpose and loyalty. We weathered the storm. Victoria and her family were ruined. Their company, Sterling Industries, was crippled by the lawsuit and the public disgrace. They were forced to sell their shares in my company at a fraction of their former value to cover their legal fees. They lost everything. About a year after the party, as my life was finally returning to a semblance of normalcy, I was having lunch with a long-serving, loyal member of my board, a man named Arthur who had been my father's right-hand man for 30 years. He had been a rock of support through the entire ordeal. "I have to confess something, Donovan," Arthur said, swirling the ice in his glass. "Your father, he never fully trusted the Sterlings. He saw the greed in Robert's eyes, even back then. He explained that my father had structured the original partnership in such a way that the Sterlings could never achieve a majority stake on the board. He had built safeguards into the corporate DNA of Vance Logistics, safeguards that had been instrumental in allowing me to fight back and win. He knew you had the vision to take this company global," Arthur said. "But he also knew that vision would be seen as a threat by small-minded, greedy people. He armed you for this fight before it ever began. He would be so damn proud of you." His words felt like a benediction from my father. It was a final, powerful piece of closure. I left that lunch and went back to my office, the headquarters of the company I had almost lost. The lesson I learned was a cold and hard one, forged in the crucible of high-stakes business and personal betrayal. I learned that in some worlds, love is just another word for leverage, and marriage is just another kind of merger. A person's true character is not revealed in moments of success, but in moments of greed. My revenge was not just playing those recordings. It was surviving. It was saving my father's company. It was in the successful launch of our Singapore distribution hub a year later, the very project they tried to destroy. I never remarried. My work became my focus, my legacy. I had lost a wife, but I had saved my family's name. I was alone, but I was not defeated. I was at peace, and my company was stronger than ever.